muscle is an issue with kidney. I mean, sarcopenia is known. I mean, I was scared actually when I was really sick. I weighed 82 pounds. I was like, I mean, I was really in a fear mode with that, and have regained my pre-cancer weight with muscle and
Yay.
a little bit of fat. I think you need a little fat on your
Look at
body.
those guns. Look at those guns. Look at those. Do the
Well,
gun. We'll do the gun show. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Jen. Welcome back to the Integrative Health Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to a friend of mine, Dr. Robin Rose. She is an allopathic MD, conventional medicine doctor who went rogue a little bit. I'm just kidding. But anyway, she has a passion for creating holistic healing for a half century. In that time, she studied herbs and Chinese medicine, acupuncture, massage, nutrition, and more. She went to medical school in Tucson, Arizona, after practicing for many years as a family nurse practitioner. Following a family medicine practice residency, she practiced in Ashland, Oregon, a delightful home office with an integrative array of offerings. Currently, she lives in Hawaii and has evolved a specialty of primary care kidney medicine called Renalogy, which is the art and the clinical source of kidney success. She wrote a detailed text, which is amazing, on using bio-regulator peptides for kidney disease, and the future is bright. Welcome, Dr. Rose. So excited to have you here to talk about your new book.
Thank you. I'll start out by showing everybody the cover because it's beautiful.
And it's thick.
And it's thick. It's one of those books that, you can read and then you can use it as exercise equipment.
That's true. It's 2-for-1 deal there. So you can get your shoulders pumping on that. Well, I know you've been a guest on the podcast before, but it's been a while. So I would love for you to just share why you got not obsessed with the kidneys, but very interested in the kidneys.
Well, as I am known to say, health food Hannah doesn't get cancer, but she did. I mean, my life was holistic eating, holistic exercise, meditating, all of this, all of that. And life goes on. I had a lot of stresses in my life. And when we first came to Hawaii, all of a sudden I started spiking high blood pressures. Me with a 90/50 history, and I got a norovirus and never got better. And eventually went back to PAC in Oregon and kind of had brain disorder. I was just discombobulated. Long and short of it, as I had kidney cancer and was very clear about having a nephrectomy. I just wanted it gone. No problem, they say. You can live with one kidney. No problem. Well, basically, I woke up to stage 4 CKD, which is considered worse than moderate, and got very, very, very little support. In fact, either one end was, don't worry, people live for a long time like this, or when will you be ready for us to install plumbing, basically for dialysis. And neither of those approaches appealed to me because, okay, I could live a long time, but I feel like the stuff that comes out of my dog's rear end, I mean, I was sick. And so I sat here in this beautiful place that I live and started looking stuff up. I found a naturopath who actually talked to me about how you improve things with lifestyle, and that got me going. And eventually, it started making sense. I started to improve slowly, slowly, slowly. And I got no support from the kidney specialists. I mean, I was even getting derided and chided for, you're going to hurt yourself. The last one I saw actually said that to me. And I'd gotten from a GFR of 30, which is not good. I mean, it's lousy, actually. Got it up to 51. And she's telling me I'm going to hurt myself. And so ultimately, I found peptides. Currently, the last number of times I've checked, with one kidney, GFR of 68, I discovered bio-regulator peptides, and this after doing what you call the low-hanging fruit. There's diet, not optional. There's very specific changes that you have to make. The willingness to get there is enormous. The people that I've worked with who are resistant, they have excuse. I have to have my this, I have to have my that. Don't get better. In fact, some of them have died. And so that's not an optional conversation. Exercise isn't optional. Sleep quality and quantity isn't optional. Stress reduction, going from the sympathetic nervous system overload that kidney disease causes to go to Vegas. Toxins are the other one that's enormous and ignored way too much. So, I've looked for ways to remediate, reverse. That's why I like the idea of Renology. I kind of invented this because primary care is supposed to be doing early kidney disease, but people don't, the docs don't know enough. And so people are falling through the cracks. Often the labs are there. I get people in stage 4, and their labs have shown changes for a long time. And they said, gee, nobody ever said anything to me. And so here I am to say, not only can you remediate, you can actually regenerate. And the cool thing about bioregulators that really turned me on, I mean, it's like life changing, is that these little tiny substances, they're like 2 to 4 amino acids, really little. They get in the cell, they can get in the nucleus. But here's the cool part about it, they lodge in the DNA and reverse epigenetic changes. That means we come with a set of ordered rulings, our genes, but life damages these things. And ultimately, it's like our bodies are supposed to be making proteins for us to live. And when the DNA gets damaged, those proteins aren't being made and things break. And so these little powerhouses get in there, and each one is different because there are many that address the different organ systems. And they get in there and they stretch out the DNA so that they can do their work. And then over time, it's not like I have a headache, I took an aspirin, it went away. I mean, this is a gradual thing. And somebody who's taking bioregulators, who's stressed out, eating bad, exposed to chemicals, blah, 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 won't get the benefits. So it's really a holistic approach. It's not like, here's your high blood pressure medicine, see you in 3 months. I mean, it's really soul searching, time in nature, time with God, all are part of what Renology sees as you can reverse this. And I've seen myself. I mean, they were telling me I was going to die in 5 years. And
Wow.
that was 12 years ago. So
Yeah.
hallelujah.
Yes. Yes. Hallelujah. It's really sad that when you go to a primary care doctor that they are not really practicing preventive medicine. It's more, detection, mammograms, colonoscopies, lab work. It's detection, it's not prevention. So that's why Renology is getting to that core, because by the time you go to a kidney specialist or a nephrologist, they're just looking at when are you going to get on dialysis? And that is when they filter your blood from a machine. And dialysis centers, they pop up everywhere now. I mean, we're talking
Everywhere.
big money. So
Exactly.
the things that we're going to talk about today, these are things that they are not mainstream. It's not conventional medicine, because when people get better from kidney disease, I don't think anyone's benefiting except the patient. And that's kind of what we're up against. And your story always just makes my heart kind of sad, because here you are, nurse practitioner and medical doctor and all these other hats that you wear, trying to get help and bringing studies to doctors, nephrologists, these are the kidney specialists, and they were just not, they were ignoring you.
Dismissive. I mean, and it's their own literature, which is the irony to me is I was reading nephrology textbooks, journals. There's plenty of that in there. And I don't get it. I mean, I see that in all of allopathic medicine, especially since corporations have taken over many practices. And so there are administrators who are telling you how to practice. Personally, I eloped from that. I lasted for 8 months in one of those kinds of situations and was like out of there. Um, and so I'm compassionate with our colleagues who are paying off their ridiculously too high loans and stuck in situations where they're being told you can't. But I can't allow that in the work that I'm doing, and I'm looking for doctors to learn this stuff. And there's more patients than we can even take care of. And yet, each of us who's faced with you have diminished kidney function is really free to start looking. It's a self-assessment. I say, like put on your little eyeglass and look around. What's toxic in my house? What's toxic in my bathroom? What's toxic under my kitchen sink? What's toxic in my pantry? Because that's easy. That's free medical care. Get rid of that stuff. Start to learn. I sat here in a very isolated place with internet and found all this stuff out. It's really out there. It's just a matter of realizing, no, I don't need to eat sugar. I don't need to drink soda. And in fact, I mean, the dietary part of it is even excessive meat can be really harmful. And so, learning some plant based strategies. The nephrology community is very anti botanical medicine. Some of them are dangerous, and more advanced kidney patients are more fragile. So, you got to know what you're doing. But I'm finding so many botanical medicines that I call functional foods. In fact, on my get around to it list is a book that I am going to call my kidney garden, and I'm growing a lot of plants that are really medicinal for kidney. We actually make herbal tinctures out of some of them that are weeds in our garden. Like Chanca piedra is an incredible medicine, and it helps with oxalates.
Yeah, and everyone's high in oxalates nowadays from
It's
yeast
in here. It's
overgrowth.
in my cup
Yeah.
of tea. It doesn't
Wow.
taste bad, I mean, and so there's so many things to do, and it's like, I mean, I'm watching you. I'm sitting here while I'm watching you. I want to be moving with you. And
I know. Well, when I interview people, I walk, but when I'm getting interviewed, I sit because you're doing most
there.
of the talking, But you can do a little dance while you talk, do a little
A little
shimmy.
hula for everybody. So, you know, it really is a decision to get better. And when you're sick, there's influences physiologically that make it harder to engage your executive function to make these decisions like, okay, I don't feel good, but I'm going to get up and go for a walk. I'm going to put some music on and dance. I mean, even when I was at my sickest, I would lay on my bed and do leg lifts and sort of, yoga stretches on the bed because I could, is what I could do as opposed to what can't I do. And so, there's a lot of complexity. I mean, some people, it's simple with kidney stuff. It's really simple. But I find mostly if you start doing the surveillance and exploratory lab testing, you find a lot of stuff that, funny thing, there's stuff we can do about it. The cardiovascular aspect of kidney is huge. In fact, I just think about kidney heart as one thing because the kidney is a blob of blood vessels, basically. It's magical. It's incredible. I mean, I think of kidney as discernment. And when I was a very young adult, I lived in India, so I learned a lot of a different way of thinking. Like discernment is really the royal path to living well, making choices, discerning what should I keep, what should I get rid of. The kidney tubules, that's what they do. All of the blood gets filtered, and then the tubules decide what do I keep and what do I excrete. And when that's not working well, a lot of stuff breaks down, sort of the downstream. And so I try to make that be at a bigger level, that I can discern what's good for me and what isn't. And that's not an overnight achievement. You know, it's an ongoing effort, and it changes in time. Something that wasn't good for me before might be okay, and vice versa. And so, you know, there's a lot of like inner self exploration. The other one is the cells. When kidney function declines, the cells actually adapt, figure out ways to deal. Some of those adaptations are actually not good for you, and in time are maladaptive. Those are important things to learn about over time. But the idea is, can I adapt? And that's true for all of us in life. You know, circumstances arise, and you can use the idea of faith. You know, do I have enough faith to roll with the punches? Do I have enough faith to act when I'm called upon to act? You know, and so ultimately, you know, these are things that I personally have to do to succeed. So if I want kidney success and not kidney failure, it's up to me. And that can be perceived as a burden, a curse, or it can be perceived as a blessing and a gift. And again, that's choosing. And so I've chosen to make this fun. It wasn't so much fun when I was really sick. I was scared. And interestingly, in Chinese medicine, fear goes with kidney as an essence. I studied acupuncture, and I like all of that. It's useful because I saw myself being fearful. And so that gave me a handle, something to work on. And then along comes these gifts, these different herbals and supplements and food that's really healthy. And funny thing, I can grow some of this in my garden. And that in itself is exercise and connection to nature and air. And then along comes the peptides. And at first I wanted to do a book about all the peptides, and it was overwhelming. I think it would have taken me the rest of my life to put it together. And I was in the car on the way to something, and I had this aha, I'm gonna just do the bioregulators. And what happened was I realized the kidney is perceived like, oh, it's filters. Okay, that's it. You know, we order a GFR and a creatinine and a BUN. Gee, okay, you're all right. But there's really more to it. And there's a lot of axes. So there's the kidney heart axis. That one's huge. People generally with kidney disease die of heart problems, cardiovascular problems, more than kidney failure. So there are things to know, like homocysteine is something that damages blood vessels. Whatever damages blood vessels matters. There's a bioregulator for blood vessels. It's worthy to weave that into the healing tapestry. It's the thing that's cool about it is these bioregulators really don't seem to have side effects. The body recognizes it itself, and they work better in elders, which means they really are repairing the damage of living, the epigenetic hit. You know, there's the brain kidney axis, the liver kidney axis, the ovary kidney axis, the eye kidney axis. And so I've addressed all of that in the book so we can all learn this. It's not that simple. And when, you know, I mean, this is true. I could do this with probably any illness. I could do liver disease and come up with the same kind of thing. But somehow I think I've been called upon to talk kidney because it's in neglect. It's the next great organ that we're going to go, oh, this is like the queen of organs. It affects so many things, and there's what we call vicious cycles. So somebody with high blood pressure, in time there's damage to kidney. Somebody with kidney issues, in time blood pressure. There's many of those. And so the other meme I use for Renology is turning vicious cycles into precious cycles. We can heal.
Yeah. And like you said, with the bioregulators, they're going in there and changing the DNA, which the environment, epigenetic stress, all of the things that we do to damage our body it helps fix that. And our body is resilient. Our kidneys are super resilient. I mean, I'm sure you've seen during your residency, like I have, practicing in emergency medicine. I mean, people can do gnarly things to their kidneys and the kidney recovers. But it's this long-term damage plus aging and having that natural aging process that can really just tank kidney function, because every year that we're living, our kidney function is decreasing. So with what you're doing, we're trying to elevate that, repair it, and improve.
Although I want to say something, I was very lucky to be in a conversation with a very enlightened nephrologist and with Joe Pizzorno, who is a naturopath who's written incredible texts on toxins. I've learned a lot from him. And she was saying, well, when people age, their kidney function declines. End of conversation. And what Joe said, Dr. Pizzorno, not so soon, not so fast, that in fact, because we don't monitor toxins generally, we don't know that it's aging. When you've been alive longer, you accumulate more toxins. I mean, and that may not even be the stuff, that's, I mean, I grew up in New York breathing bus fumes, and, I mean, the air has stuff that, we're a toxic overload, and I'm ready for that to turn around. Um, but I loved what he said, because ultimately, I mean, I have a 70-plus-year-old husband whose kidney function is basically 99.4%. It's not
Wow.
necessarily that you age and your kidneys decline. It's that you age with a lot of toxic insults that cause havoc to kidney. And when we know that there's a lot of like limbic system changes, and changing some of those ways of thinking. I mean, think about it. We didn't really have ways to diagnose kidney disease historically. And so you waited until somebody puffed up like a big blister, or whatever the presentation advanced. And so nephrology really has taken on a severe illness. I mean, advanced kidney disease is not fun, but early, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, I've even been told, well, you look better than everybody I saw all day. It's like, well, that's not the way you practice medicine. When you're in the room with me, it's me and you. Don't compare me with the last person who's on dialysis or is about to be, and so I know of a few nephrologists who are really functional thinkers who are getting it, that we start at least in stage 2. Stage 1, people are pretty good. I mean, that's, in my mind, just do primary prevention. Don't do stupid stuff that hurts yourself. But stage 2, there's an enormous amount of decline happening. There's, you know, the blood vessels are declining. There's dysbiosis. The mitochondria are declining. The tubules are really under assault earlier than we know, because we don't typically have blood tests or urine tests that we do, except for protein in the urine. Not everybody has that. So then those folks fall through the cracks until, now it's an emergency. And that's that, I like early bird medicine. I like the idea that we can really step in early, and it's not necessarily that we need pharmaceuticals for that kind of medical care, that there's another kind of early care that's gentler, and you can actually get people to make changes when they don't feel so sick. It's harder when you really feel bad to go, well, everything I'm doing is wrong, I got to make changes. And you go slow, gentle. What are you drinking? Start out with that. How much are you drinking? Go on to diet, sugar. What are you eating for breakfast? I mean, it's a gradual process, and it's not a 7-minute doctor visit.
Yeah. And that's some of the problems. So if someone's being proactive out there for kidney health, what labs should they be monitoring? And they could get these from their primary care doctor.
hopefully.
Yeah.
I had trouble getting tests ordered for myself until I found the right person. Um, basic lab panels are useful, just right off the bat. I like to look at the CO2, which is the bicarb, because the acid base imbalance that happens with kidney messes up a lot of things. It's a really easy fix. And generally, you see um, many doctors are comfortable if it's 22 to 25. I like it closer to 30. And so there's something very easy to do, which is bicarbonate. Baking soda is utterly simple and can reverse some things. So right off the bat, you got something actionable on a everybody gets it panel. The BUN and creatinine is helpful. It's not that helpful, but if it's elevated, there's plenty of conversations. GFR, useful, except if it says greater than 60 is normal, come talk to me. That's not normal. And there's plenty of stuff to do, including get going with the bioregulators. Um, Uric acid, PTH, vitamin D, magnesium, zinc, all very important. There's some interesting ones. ADMA and TMAO are helpful. Homocysteine is really important. Advanced lipid testing is important. I'm doing a recorded talk for the Integrative Kidney Conference that's happening in the summer. We worked that out so that instead of traveling, which I find I don't want to do right now, part of my kidney regimen is staying still. Um, but there's some testing that I've been learning from some Chinese nephrologists that pick up on early tubular changes. And they're using them, and that way you get a conversation. Once you know something's wrong, okay, if I can find my willingness and I'm going to adapt, I'm going to make the changes, that information is inspiring to me. I want to improve that. And that's kind of how I work with people. You know, there's a whole lot more stuff to be done. I love getting huge, like a Nutrival kind of panel, oat testing, dysbiosis testing, um, genomic testing. There's a wide array, and you don't have to do it all day one. You can start out slow and then say, okay, let's work on the few things that don't look normal, and then keep going. And so longevity testing's interesting. And I
Yes.
did the longevity testing for the bioregulator study that I was part of, and I was looking really good on longevity. So that was encouraging to me, and it got better using the bioregulators. It didn't mean I wasn't still ill. Cystatin C, by the way, is another really useful test because GFR can be misleading. Muscle mass matters, age matters, and so it can be deceptive. There's also something that, thank goodness, is being changed. There's like a GFR level for Black people, which is absolutely stupid because it essentially keeps them from getting diagnosed promptly. And fortunately, that's been changed, but I'm still seeing it on labs when I review labs. It's like, oh, great, here it is again. And so, you just have to be savvy and use the labs to inspire, not to deflate.
Yeah, that's a great point. Look at them as a positive. Hey, something's off, but we have time. We're gonna work
And
on this. Let's get some bioregulators going. So
yeah, exactly.
how do you start? Like how do you if you have kidney decline, how do you use bioregulators wisely and successfully?
It really it's that is ultimately the best question. I like taking a really thorough history, and actually, Dr. Readers and I are going to work on doing a primary care guide to a history and physical for kidney. That's our another project on my pile. And so there's a lot to ask, the priors, what's happened to you before, because those things are going to impact. In other words, I had a hysterectomy. I lived in India. I had hepatitis. When you look those things up long term, they can impact kidney. I didn't know that. I mean, nobody ever mentioned that to me, and I didn't know either. Okay, now I know. And so you take a really good history. Some people enter kidney cardiovascular wise. Some are dysbiotic. Some are um, autoimmune. Some endocrine. So that's important stuff to know. How'd you get there? Um, and that guides choices for what you do. So basically, when I'm looking at someone, I almost always use a few things, being pilotax is the kidney bioregulator, is absolutely wonderful. I love it. I take it. I've been taking it actually for a number of years. Generally, the way bioregulators are used is you do a loading dose. So you might do 10 days if someone's not severe, 15, even 30 days. And then you cycle it. It may be in a month's time, you do another 10 or 15 days. Certain situations, I think, require long term. And so I feel that way with pilotax, and carnosine is another of my utter favorite tiny peptides that I think can be used long term. I often will use brain, pineal, thymus, blood vessel, heart, and parathyroid. The parathyroid gets damaged with kidney disease, but it's interesting because another thing that gets neglected that I think is an enormous issue, I have a lot written about it in the book, including a whole chapter, is phosphorus. We need phosphorus. Phosphorus is part of our fabric. But with kidney, the way that the body processes it means the level gets too high. And the easiest way to understand phosphorus is that when it's imbalanced, it sucks calcium out of the bones and deposits them in the blood vessels. Two major things with kidney disease that we want to avoid. So get a phosphorus level. And here's the glitch. The normal range for phosphorus is not normal for kidney. I just wrote a blog post about this, which is worth reading because these are things we don't know. So you can get a phosphorus level of 4.2 and think, nah, fine, that's in the normal range, but not with kidney. 3.5 and above is already causing cardio damage. So let's do something about it. And like I was saying just before we started, Acacia senegal is the powdered goo from a certain acacia tree that's kind of amazing. I actually learned about it from the DaVita dialysis website. It was hidden underneath everything, but I started researching. I actually was in touch with some Middle Eastern nephrologists who are utterly into this stuff and even claim that they've gotten people off dialysis using it. I'm like, I'm interested. And so, that actually uses the gut to chelate, grab the phosphorus, and you excrete it through the bowel. So, there are a lot of tricks, but the phosphorus issue leads to using bonotherc, which is such a crazy Russian word, the parathyroid, when people might have a tendency towards um, anemia, which happens with kidney disease. There's bonomarlow, the bone marrow, and that's some support for generating the blood cells and erythropoietin, which is made in the bone. Liver clearly is an issue. It's the twin detox organ, and the relationship with liver and kidney is a big one. And so, when I'm cycling people with different bioregulators, I might pick 3 or 4 that are their primary needs, and have them be more frequent, more higher dosing, more prolonged use, and then add the other ones over time. I might put 10 days of the muscle. Muscle is an issue with kidney. I mean, sarcopenia is known. I mean, I was scared actually when I was really sick. I weighed 82 pounds. I was like, I mean, I was really in a fear mode with that, and have regained my precancer weight with muscle and
Yay.
a little bit of fat. I think you need a little fat on your
Look at
body.
those guns. Look at those guns. Look at those.
Well,
We'll do the gun show. But you're right. Like you need muscle. And especially when you were going through all of this, you were at the age where it's hard to gain muscle. So that's
yeah.
why peptides are beautiful.
In the bone marrow, I mean, bone and osteoporosis is an issue. It's a little bit different than the garden variety osteoporosis because of issues with kidney, but you know, not only do you want to monitor and make sure, but do something early. And it's not just taking calcium, because that also can be a toxin in certain kidney cases. So each case has to be personalized. And so, how do you generalize? Well, with kidney, just use these. Well, yeah, that I love the pineal thymus combination. A lot of the early research that they did was using those. And the thymus connection with kidney is amazing. The immunity that gets damaged, that's a whole separate conversation, which we can have sometime. But it's not that hard to fix, and easier when you start earlier. I
Right.
mean, that's really the thing. And the thing that I realized is I have to pay out of pocket for stuff. My insurance is not bad, but it doesn't cover any of things that are rejuvenation, remission kinds of stuff. I mean, I even pay extra money to have the few pharmaceuticals that I take compounded to eliminate the silicon dioxide and titanium dioxide that are generally in commercial pills. And so it's not that expensive, but, I mean, it adds up, with the supplements and the bioregulators. But to me, it's like, what do I have money for? I mean, the health benefits are very obvious to me, making these choices to clean up the act and especially clean up the mind, to have surveillance for poor me. I'm pissed. What else? What are the trends? Like,
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah. We need to definitely clear up the mind and, we're not in control ultimately. I mean, we can be in control of our health, but God is ultimately in control. So that takes some of the pressure off. Now, so Dr. Rose, let's geek out on your favorite carnosine, right? So I loved, gosh, the chapter. And I mean, it was a lot of information. Probably more information than you need to know is in this book, which is a good thing because it's a reference book. And it's also just fun to read. I was reading at my son's baseball game. People probably are like, what is she reading? But let's talk about carnosine, because I feel like carnosine doesn't get enough spotlight, which it should.
So I have the book open to carnosine, and here it starts on 610, and I'm looking, the index is 647. The references. It's amazing. It's two amino acids, alanine and histidine. If you take alanine and histidine separately, it's not going to do the same thing. And that's fascinating to me. So there's something about bonds, which we know with people. I mean, two individuals, that get together, there's some magic that happens that I want to do some more exploring. I'm not like the genius chemist. My undergraduate degree was nursing, so I can't compete with some of these like brilliant chemistry doctors, but I want to know this because something happens. It's so small, it's very agile. And so these two amino acids have so many things that they can do. I mean, it's crazy. I'm looking at this and it's like pages and pages of the actions and things that are harsh on kidney. Insulin sensitivity, it helps with that. Heavy metal chelating is stunning because there are fairly safe chelators. Oops, that's something I didn't mention. Heavy metal testing with kidney is an enormously important thing because otherwise you don't know. I mean, I did it several times. The first one I did showed mercury, a high level of mercury. I eat this much cilantro a day. I put cilantro in everything. That helps. Also, I just found out last night, I finally looked it up. Acacia Senegal does. But carnosine is in my supplement tray every day. And you can dose it slowly and low. I just had a conversation with Phil Mikens, he's a pharmacist who produces these bioregulators in England, that low dose carnosine also has some potent action. I tend to use 500 milligram capsules, two twice a day. You don't want to jump into a high dose of anything with kidney anything. You go slow, watch what it does. You don't add 10 things at once because that can be confusing. But insulin resistance, glucotoxicity needs to be addressed. Carnosine does that. I mean, it helps with inflammation. I'm going to look at my list so that I'm articulate about this. Protein carbonylation. I mean, really, it's nitric oxide and hydrogen sulfide benefits. That means these small molecules that are going around causing havoc are dealt with. It's like kind of having your own personal protection crew. It's not expensive. There's really not many reasons not to take it, and I encourage anybody who's interested, read this chapter in the book. It's amazing. It helps with the high fat diet that can help with many things. The keto and paleo diet is high fat, but that has dysbiosis risks. Carnosine will help. I had a very prominent house guest, um, who was in the middle of me cooking for a bunch of people, started giving me a hard time about my iron cookware. I mean, you have to stop using this now. And I was like, no, I don't. And I'm almost done with dinner. Why don't you wait outside? And I looked it up. And yes, carnosine does chelate and remove the damages of iron. So now he's taking carnosine. Especially one of the things to know is that carnosine comes from meat. And with kidney disease, eliminating red meat is not a bad idea. Everybody's unique. You can work with each person individually. A lot of people who I've managed to get them to shift into, it doesn't mean never, but lowering and eliminating a lot of animal foods can be really beneficial to kidney. And maybe in time, I mean, I've found that as my functions improved, I eat more things that I couldn't when I was sicker. But carnosine comes from meat. So when you're giving people advice to lower their amount of animal food, it's not a bad idea to add some carnosine. Carnitine sounds like carnosine. It's also from meat, and it does different things. I tend to advise kidney patients not to do carnitine because there's some issues with it that are concerning. And so you get a TMAO level if it's nicely low or comfortably in the normal range. Okay, maybe so. There are certainly benefits. That's true with phosphatidylcholine as well. There's a lot of benefits, but if you have a TMAO level, you might not want to do it. And that's where it just gets like lots of picky stuff. But I really also love Vilon, which is a thymus peptide, and it's available orally. You can actually get it combined with thymogen, so it's a double thymus. You know, the immune system gets aggravated with uremic toxins showing up, and then it just is another vicious cycle. The blood cells can get confused, and you find results on tests. You're like, now what do I do? And that's where thymus comes in a beautiful way. Anybody with autoimmune issues, gentle placement of thymus bioregulators and peptides is wonderful, and so it's kind of like there isn't a peptide to use. Oh, just use this one and it'll all be good. Because if you think about it, I mean, even just the kidney, there's blood vessels, there's innervation, there's cartilage. Okay, that's several bioregulators right there. Anybody who has any kind of lung problems, cycle the bronchial ones. I personally waited too long to really attend to the fact that I had cataracts. Kidney disease exacerbates cataract wildly. And there's carnosine eye drops, but I don't think they work once the cataracts are evolved that much. Now I am more proactive with having people take the eye bio-regulators because they tend to be helpful. And there's another bio-regulator eye drop, visomycin, which I address in the book as well, that is available to get from Europe. So far, I haven't seen it in America, but it's an incredibly useful thing for the array of problems that happen with eyes. And it's preventive. It's not like, okay, now I have severe eye problems. I mean, my husband had very early eye pressure increases. He started using these two different eye drops, the visomycin and Can-C, went back normal, went back again, still normal.
Yeah, it's like being preventive and not reactive when it comes to our body. And being in tune with what's going on is really important also.
Yeah, listening, listening to symptoms. I feel like messages come to me. So here's kind of a cool story. I kind of knew I should be using bicarb. And you put a half teaspoon of bicarb in a half cup of water, drink it, never with food, always on an empty stomach. There are a few things that can happen that aren't good with that. So, it's nice to have a helper to guide you, but pretty safe. I wasn't doing it because it's like, yuck. I'm a little bit of a whiny thing when it comes to stuff. And so I went to our local thrift store, and wouldn't you know it, the way I say it is God told me to take these pills. Brand new, unopened bottle, not expired, of bicarb tablets. I said, oh, thank you. Started taking bicarb. My uric acid normalized because it was elevated. My PTH was slightly elevated. It normalized. My FGF23, that's another one that maybe I didn't mention, helps to understand if phosphorus is abnormal, especially early. I was delighted. All it is like this little aspirin-y looking pill, and you can decide on dosing. I started with one, watched the CO2 on labs. I saw mine to be 25 a couple times. I'm like, higher. I want it more to be 27, 28, 29, 30. And so that helps with the muscles. And the other thing that some of the bioregulators really make a difference with is nitric oxide. Arugula, I never liked. Arugula is the best source of nitrates for nitric oxide, which helps blood vessels. Another thing to consider. And I mean, BPC 157 is not a bioregulator, but it will enhance nitric oxide. And with kidney, that's, again, a no-brainer. So we have so many ways to achieve kidney success. And here's a good start.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So let's talk, Dr. Rose, about your book and how those listening can get it, because everyone should have this as a reference. It's beautiful.
It's really helpful, and it's inspiring. I mean, I use it as a reference. There's so much in here. The index is helpful. I often keep the page for the materia medica that tells you about all of the different bioregulators. I have it with the marks, because sometimes I'm like, what's the name of that? The names are all, Eastern European names, and I don't have that ear. My website is where to get this book exclusively. We chose not to go through Amazon. And so it is Renology is Kidney Success, all one word, RENOLOGY.com. And you can subscribe. I'm having fun writing blog posts, and there's a way to contact me on there. I have lots of videos and different talks that I've done. I'm just getting going. We just started when the book came out. So that's where to get the book, where to find me, where to contact me. And, I'm looking to do some more clinician teaching. And actually, Dr. Readers is trying to convince me to do it like a chapter by chapter mentorship so we can just have a conversation about some of these things. Because when you look at the first section of the book, I'm going through what can go awry with kidney, that there's something we can do about it. And I haven't really seen this all put together in this way. Like, what do you do about heavy metals? What do you do about microplastics? Those are simple. Phosphorus. I mean, and it's a pretty short part of the book. But hormesis. I mean, when I learned about hormesis, it changed my life. That there are toxic things that small amounts are helpful. It's like, okay, so a small amount of stress encourages action at a cellular level. That's kind of a meditation for me. I'm still pondering what that actually looks like, but I've gone into that, and so I call this Introduction to Renology Kidney Topics, so that we can all get up to speed. And then I'm using the website and my blog posts to just keep that conversation going.
Oh, I
Right.
love it. And I love your passion, and that you are just creating this out of a need, because we need people to have healthy kidneys. And, maybe you could erase a bunch of the dialysis clinics with your work.
We
So
can't afford it. I mean, we really can't afford to dialyze everybody. I call it the kidney demic. The statistics are crazy. I mean, we're up to like 15+% of the population, and that doesn't include stage 2. So I think if we really included stage 2 in this conversation, it would be enormous. And I've been learning from doctors in countries that they can't afford dialysis, and so they do come up with things like acacia and using turmeric. And I mean, there's just so many things that can be included. And okay, if somebody's severely sick, you want medicine. You want this allopathic help. But by itself, I don't think it's the whole paragraph. I think it's only part of the story. And those of us who are doing integrative, holistic, functional kind of practice, we're still using allopathic wisdom and skills and tools. But living on dialysis is no big gift. Living with a transplant is no big gift. You're on lots of drugs. I mean, people do it. And, I decided I don't want dialysis. I'm old enough and what I found is not one of the 5 nephrologists who I saw had much to offer me besides don't worry. That's not medical care, and it really took the naturopath to go through like line by line. I mean, she wrote me up this incredible advice sheet with references. You want to read about this? Here's the reference. I mean, and it's like that's the way we need to do this. Encourage people to be excited to do their own studying, but you don't with kidney. You want to be careful. What you read on the internet. Be cautious. That's why we need more clinicians who are going to take this on and work together. It's a team effort.
yeah.
Like, I can't make people stop drinking soda. They got to make themselves do that. But I might keep reminding them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, everyone go out and get the book. There was so much information in this podcast. You're probably gonna want to listen to it again. And thank you so much for being here. We
Hey,
appreciate you,
beautiful.
Robin. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. You inspire me. You're doing incredible education for people, and you're beautiful, have a beautiful family, and the right sentiments and the right connection to God. Thank you.
Aw, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. Mwah.